welcome to what I'm going to introduce as the van chat, which actually might spread out into the car chats, and maybe just the driving chats, maybe just the motorway natters, who knows. But yeah, just a quick update and a bit of my thoughts and feelings on the current what I'm going to call absolute shit show that is the art of motoring in the UK, which I've found to be quite depressing lately. No, I'm not depressed, so please don't call the Samaritans. I'm doing an absolutely safe speed on the motorway. I think I'm on the M42, and eventually I'm going to have to let you go so I can make sure I'm doing 50 in the average speed zone, which is most of the M42, heading from Solihull into Birmingham again. But I just had a lovely afternoon in Henley and Arden, which has been nice. The pints are a little bit expensive, and that's life now if you want to be anywhere near some farms and also have a pint. But that's by the by. It's been a lovely evening, meeting and catching up with my sister, and now I'm on the way home to eat and see my family, and I'm very much looking forward to it. But a little thing that happened this week, which I want to have a little chat about, regarding taxis, cars, insurance, clean air zones, and just all the tripping points that come with trying to literally be on the road, which I always thought would be a privilege and like what do they call it? What's the official term for when a rite of passage, when you just get old enough and then you earn your way and you're right to do something within reason, affordably, safely, and all the other things that we all expected from getting older and driving vehicles. Now, a major problem is that I was born apparently in 1992, which makes me 31 years old in this grand year of the Lord 2024, and I've been driving since 2014 after 3 or 4 years of riding motorbikes, starting with a 125 and a CVT, getting motorbikes from there. But even there was tripping points, so that I couldn't just get an A1 license and ride any motorbike that I wanted. I had to get an A2 license because I was under 21, which means I'm limited to a certain kilowatts power output, which was basically a 600cc restriction. So unless I wanted to pay another multi-100 to do an A1 again, because now I'm old enough, and I was old enough 10 years ago now to do this, but that would have been to get an A1 license, which would let me ride any motorbike ever, and that's that. But yeah, I digress on the whole talk there, but I'm just saying that it's not been an easy journey as a human born in the early 90s. I'm very much aware that it hasn't got easier for anyone born since, and it's not like the 90s are specific to the tyranny, because I believe that people in their 50s are going through the same problems, and the 60s, and everyone else who just can't retire and stop working. We're all in for a bad time. But my main point here is that driving with zero faults, zero insurance claims, doing things by the book, has not paid any dividends, unfortunately, in the last 10 years. Now, only 7 or 8 of those years have I been under my own vehicle as a full adult who has his own car and then starts to tot up some no claims on their insurance. So I'm currently riding 8 years no claims. The first time I even got a car, I don't know how old I was, like 22 maybe. Insurance was tickling £1,000 then, and that would be for the old Ford KA at the time, which I was willing to pay because no other outgoings. I was just chilling, I was living at home, all that good stuff. So it was by those kind of costs. And then slowly, as you climb through the years, especially hitting 25, where you're suddenly allowed to have the DOC on your license, which lets you drive other cars. That was super worth it, because then all of a sudden you could drive your friends' cars, your girlfriend's cars, your mum and dad's cars, all of that with permission, of course. But that really added to the plus points of having insurance and a driving license in the first place. It just opened up the world to exciting motoring. And another thing that kept my mind occupied and the fingers full of pies was driving for multiple companies, mainly AV companies, which would have hire vans coming in, hire cars, other colleagues' cars. All of a sudden the book was open to drive those kind of fun things, which, you know, it gave me the opportunity to drive a Volkswagen Arteon, which was nice, a 2-litre Astra diesel, which I really enjoyed, loads of Sprinter vans, Vivaros, Volkswagen Transporters, T5s, T6s, all the good stuff. And that enjoyment is starting to really put the brakes on now, based on the last couple of years. Now, we're going to say post-lockdown to keep the algorithm happy, but since then, insurance has absolutely rocketed. Buying a car has rocketed for various reasons, like the scrappage schemes, clean air zones, which make certain older Euro 4 petrols really desirable because you can go into your own city centre without paying £8 a time. But also, buying a Euro 5 diesel is now a sin, and you shouldn't buy one because you can't go to town because it needs to be Euro 6 and AdBlue and all those extra things that mean it's safe to drive around and people aren't going to die in your local town because of emissions. But it's been a weird little one this week where I was almost thinking about buying a Skoda Fabia Estate Greenline Edition. It was 2011, which is new to me. My vehicles have always been fairly old. I'm currently driving a 1998 Volkswagen T4 800 Special 1.9 TD, and those are the kind of things that keep things cheap, with the lower engine sizes, the less passenger input, and all these things that keep insurance down. And weirdly, business insurance has kept my insurance down, being self-employed. But business insurance on vans makes you forego the drive of a car's, what do they call it? Can't remember the fancy word on your insurance, an endorsement. Yeah, being business insured means it's not just a car you're insuring, it's another kettle of fish. So now I can only drive this van under this insurance. Luckily, if you go back in the channel, you'll see that I purchased a Ford Ka for a very princely sum of £200, I think it was. And a 2008 petrol Ka, the old Mark 1 shape, that can get you into town for free still, based on it being a Euro 4 petrol and a slightly small 1.3, which I think is pretty pokey really for a small car engine size. So I've been using that car to commute to any city centre jobs, which is actually quite a lot of my work is going into Birmingham city centre. So saving £8 a pop every time I go in has been an absolute no-brainer as far as buying a car for £200. The sting in the tail is obviously tax on a small Ka now is £210 a year.
In now 2 miles at junction 7.
So this van is £250 give or take a year, which I don't see as reasonable, but it's definitely reasonable compared to £210 for a Ka. So the first, I've really gone off kilter here, but keep that Skoda Greenline in mind, which is a 3-cylinder diesel 1.2, completely underpowered, almost dangerous to drive because it's hard to get up to speed in traffic really, and apparently you'd have to change your driving style just to drive the bloody thing. But it did, well, an advertised 92 miles per gallon, which made it tax free, and it still is. I think maybe it's £20 a year depending on the age, but generally I think that car, a 2011 Skoda Fabia Estate 1.2 Greenline, is actually free to tax. But being free to tax doesn't make it clean air zone friendly, because that would require the Euro 6 stuff, and it's a Euro 5 diesel, so even though we've left the EU, we still held on to all of the European restrictions and regulations for some reason. So this all applies to going to your local city centre in an old diesel. So Euro 6 on the diesel probably only really becomes the norm at around 2014, maybe a touch before that, but not too much. So you've priced out so many diesel cars if you want to go to your own town for free. Now, going to your own town for free is a general misdemeanor anyway, because parking in towns, especially in the city centre, is complete extortion also. For an example, parking in Snow Hill, say, in Birmingham, right in the main bit, will cost you, and this is one of the cheaper places, but it's going to be about £19 for the day, which is crazy. I've paid
In a
more.
quarter of a mile,
One
a
moment.
junction.
Now I think it's called the B5 car park by, again, just round the corner in Snow Hill. But being a ANPR subscription service, which could
Exit at
potentially
junction 7.
make things cheaper for you quite a lot, but I didn't have a membership when I first went in there, and it cost me
Continue for half a mile.
£28. Sorry, £28 to park for the best part of 14 hours in the city centre. So even with the saving of
In a quarter of a
£8,
mile, use the right.
the £8 you'd spend, well, you haven't had to spend by buying a KA to go into town for free, even though the tax on the car is extortionate anyway. Just as a side note, the £210 you pay in or annual tax, which obviously pays for all the roads in the
Use the
area
right
of the
lane to
country,
take the slip road to M6.
that equates to about 23 trips into town. So I'll clear that in the best
Continue
part
on
of
M6
3
for 8
months.
miles.
So it doesn't make too much difference. So this is part of the mental gymnastics that I've got to go through when it comes to deciding what car to buy next. Currently, I'm looking at, because, oh, bloody hell, I'm skipping all over the place. But because buying an £800 Skoda is £800, that's that. I could sell my KA for probably 400 quid, give or take. But insuring that Skoda would be about £600, and that wouldn't be for high mileage. That would probably be third party fire and theft and just sack off comprehensive, because my no claims would tell you that I'm not much of a crasher. But to get the price down, you get rid of all those bits, and I think going third party fire and theft would also negate the drive of a cars thing. So you want to be going fully comp when you can. But alas, buying a car for 800, insuring it for 600, tax would be free on that car. So it's an outlay of close to £1,500 to get going. Now, to keep the KA, to do it up and to get it through a few more MOTs whilst it's free to get into the clean air zone is great, but every year that I do that, tax on that car will go up. It's currently 210, no doubt it'll be 230 this time next year. So it's an ever accruing cost to keep a car that has the perks of going into the city centre for free. And you end up driving a, not dangerous, but definitely less safe car than a lot of the newer stuff, because there's such a small crumple zone on those cars, and they're designed for flitting around a university campus as opposed to doing big miles on the motorway. As much as I believe that KAs are absolutely fine on the motorway and have good fun in them, and I like driving them, and I completely rate them as a car, even though their electrics are poo. And then you take into account my other vehicles. A Morris Minor from 1966 can go into town for free. It's MOT exempt, it's tax exempt, and it's quite cheap to run. The problem there is you need to buy E5 petrol because they lowered the octane value in E10. So now you have to pay for the premium fuels to keep your car running, else you will ruin all the seals and bits and bobs that E10 petrol does to old cars. So all by design, every corner is attacking each version of just trying to enjoy motoring in older cars. Now, this van is amazing on fuel. It's a 1.9 TD AVL engine, super reliable. You keep an eye on the cam belt, and apart from that, everything's pretty sweet. It doesn't use oil, it doesn't use water and all that annoying stuff. MOTs, it generally flies through. I've had a couple of years of welding and things catching up on that side of things, but it's approaching 30 years old, so fair enough on that kind of side. For a German-made vehicle that's been going through salt grit, which seems to be a European thing, because yeah, we use salt to stop ourselves sliding on the ice, and salt plus water plus oxygen really rapidly increases the rust on your cars. So just living in England is a bit of a tax on your own car and longevity anyway, unless you keep on top of waxing and undersealing and all those things, which I don't because I'm a lazy boy, but I do keep on top of fixing things that are within my remit, such as replacing starter motors, alternators, belts, steering belts, water pumps, all those things that you can do, tyres of course, blah blah blah. So a horrible thing is that in the grasp of my ownership is a BMW estate from the year 2000, an E46, E36, E46 BMWs. They're lovely, not the best on fuel, and my dad would give me that tomorrow. He's got another car, he doesn't need it, he's just had a load of work done on it. It runs amazing, it is an automatic petrol, so it drinks, but the tax on that car is £375 a year, and the insurance for someone who's drove for 10 years, 8 of those years being claim free, is close to £900. So just to get in that car and tax that car without putting any fuel in it or doing anything else is about £1,200 outlay, and that's a car that's free. So automatically that puts itself in the same category as me buying a Skoda Fabia and putting up with the draggy drive of that, and spending £1,500 for the privilege. So what do? Do you go with an EV? Obviously not, because you'll be laying out £15,000 to £20,000 for the vehicle. Maybe the tax will be free for the best part of a year, but then you've got all the charging is a nightmare. I live in a ground floor flat. I don't have the option to charge at home, so I'd have to park at Tesco or at a place of work. I'm self-employed, so I don't have a fixed place of work to do those things, so electric cars are out of the question. So what do you do? Things driving up the insurance are electric cars themselves catching fire on the roads, melting the roads, causing loads of mayhem there, burning down car parks in airports, stuff like that, which doesn't help. There's people in the area who don't pay for insurance anymore, and they crash, and their victims get paid out by the general pot, which puts up the insurance for everyone else, which is a massive problem. So it's just ridiculous. I mean, I literally know, I mean, look, we all pay our insurance and we try and play by the book, but I know people who don't even have driving licenses who insure their cars anyway to stop the police pulling them over, and they tax their cars anyway to stop the police pulling them over, because the police don't know that you don't have a license. But lo and behold, if that, and this is a true story, but someone I know got caught in a car crash local to me. It got written off. Their car, an old Fiesta or something, was done. The car that hit them was some kind of Romanian driver who drove away. He said, sorry, drove away from the situation because obviously it wasn't insured. So insurance paid out on the guy who didn't have a license and shouldn't have even been on the road. But obviously, if you're playing the game properly and legit, you'll probably get done over by your insurance suddenly realising that your car was a Class C or a Category C back in the day. So no, it's not actually worth anything, and it was dangerous to be on the road, and blah, blah, blah.
In 2 miles, take the A38.
That's the rant, basically. It's just that we're all trying to play ball. It's an impossible game of cats and mice and donkeys chasing carrots in front of them and never quite getting there. And this is me putting it just on my own record, so I can look back in years' time and just see the state of affairs, which is what I love about social media. It's the historical record of what people in the area in real life actually think. If you're lucky enough to find channels like mine, who are just an everyday person getting by and reporting their findings as they go, I think it's going to be fascinating in 20 years' time just to see what people were talking about. I get it already. If you search for Vortex Squid on YouTube, you'll find my old YouTube page, which was me riding around with an action camera on my helmet on my old motorbikes. My, bloody hell, what were they even called? An ER5 Kawasaki, a GPX 600R Kawasaki, a Honda NTV, a Suzuki RV125, just all the good old times on bikes. But they're all there on YouTube. If you want to go back 10 years and watch my full HD and well sounding videos, you'll enjoy it, and you'll see how much the roads have changed, public opinion, how I've changed, how I speak's changed, how my political stance has changed. You'll just hear my thoughts and essentially living diary from back then. If you go back, I will put it in the video hopefully, or I'll put it in the description below, where you can go and watch these things and just marvel at the fact that everything's changed just in that time. And what is the world going to look like in 10 years time from now? I doubt anyone's going to be driving vans from 1998. I doubt that it will be free to tax classic cars. MOT exemptions will be out the window, and I just think we're going to be living in an absolute clown world. But we'll all be used to it, and we'll cease to complain because we'll all be used to it. But that's all I want to say. That's 21 minutes of me chatting absolute bollocks. But I just think it's fascinating to think how much the world's changed, and I hope you all start getting your own thoughts and feelings down on video and just upload it, and it's saved to the internet for a good while before your thoughts are
In a quarter of a
deleted.
mile,
Thanks for joining me. I've been a Bromley Wonders. That's
take
been
the
a
A38.
talk on the road.
and
I'm so
exit, then
sorry I
slide
left my
right
sat
onto the
nav
slip
sound
road to
on,
Birmingham.
but I hope you've heard all of that. And yeah, throw your own findings in the
Slide
comments
right onto
below.
the slip road
I'd
to
love to
Birmingham.
hear your experience in growing up as a millennial and how things
In
and
a
costs
quarter of a
and
mile,
trying to
at the
drive
roundabout,
has cost
take
you.
the first exit onto Slade
Goodbye.
Road.